at the heart of what we do. Our philosophy at Allan Gray, because it's only over the long term that you can build wealth. Everything over the short term, there are so many random things happening in the world and markets react and so on, but you've got to stay focused.
99 FM, your inspiration station. True rewards that take time. If you heard that slogan, you know it's time for Wealth Talks, brought to you by Allan Gray. Now, we've been talking a lot about things about savings and investment during our series and during the segment here on Wealth Talks. And a recurring phrase throughout has been the long term. Having the end game in mind, basically. But what does it really mean, and how can one do this effectively? We're joined in studio once again by our resident financial guru, Mr. Etienne le Roux from Allan Gray Namibia, and he's back to talk about and to unpack the concept of long-term thinking when it comes to investing and building your personal wealth portfolio. Mr. Etienne, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome back.
Lovely to be back. Thanks.
It's great to have you back in the studio. Etienne, please share, your 2 cents and your opening thoughts on the concept, on the phrase long-term.
Yeah. So long-term investment, that's really at the heart of what we do. Our philosophy at Allan Gray, because it's only over the long term that you can build wealth. Everything over the short term, there are so many random things happening in the world and markets react and so on, but you've got to stay focused and look through it.
Yeah.
But it's easier said than done. I think, most people I meet say, no, this is a long-term investment that we're doing, and then it never turns out to be.
Yeah. Do you think it's a patience thing, being patient enough to wait?
Yeah, patience and discipline, right?
Yeah,
so, we all want something and we want it now.
Yes.
And that's really, what distinguishes animals from humans, right? We've got the ability to delay the gratification. But seldom we get that right the way we want to.
Yeah. Etienne, I'm assuming that you came bearing some gifts, some pointers for our listeners today on the phrase long term.
Yeah, so I think have different goals, right? Say you have a child that's just been born, you want to put some money away for the child's education. That's kind of an 18-year thing, because more or less the child goes to university or to the tech after finishing school.
Yeah.
So have different buckets, have different saving, almost investment little accounts for different things, because if you just throw everything in one bucket, you'd be tempted to dip your fingers and the bucket may look larger than what it really is. So I think that's one thing to do it. And the other thing also, write it down. Give it a name. Then you at least know your goals are set. But if the goals are floating in your head, and share it with your partner, share it with your spouse, and say, listen, account number 1, 2, 3. That is for 5 years from now. That is not for this Christmas.
Not for this Christmas. It actually brings me to my next question, Etienne. So your belief in the long run isn't enough. You obviously, like you mentioned, have to include your investor, your co-workers, spouses and friends, and they also have to sign up for the ride. Tell us and emphasize more on why it's important to share, especially when it comes to long-term, goals, to share that with your friends, family or spouse in this case.
Yeah, it's a very interesting one, and I think it's to make sure that your interests are aligned, that your thinking is aligned over the long term. As I said, I'm pretty sure if you walk outside and you would do a random sort of sample of people, ask them what they consider to be long term, you might get anything from 3 years to 30 years, right?
Yeah.
But I think if you sit down with your family, your loved ones, and explain to them, what it is, then it's easier to make that commitment for that period.
Also to keep you accountable. Like if you tell your spouse about, listen, this is the goal, this is the plan, this is the long-term goal that I have, so you can't touch that money. If it's for the long term, that person, the spouse or the friend or the coworker, can also keep you and hold you responsible to sticking to that long term goal. Etienne, also, what's the behavior change here? What must be done? What can I do to cultivate a long term mindset when it comes to financial planning?
Yeah, absolutely. I would suggest Google compound growth or compound interest. It's an extremely powerful thing. The longer you leave your money, the more it grows, the more it compounds. It's like if you eat a piece of chocolate cake today, you're not going to see it on your body the next day. It'll take a while for that to develop. And it's the same with compounding growth. So understanding compounding growth, and then also make your goals clear. I was thinking on my way here, if you have a 40-year work career, that means that's 480 paychecks only, right? So if you've got 10 years left or so like me, that's 120 paychecks left. You've got to be very careful what you do with it. So have that budget, make sure that you know what you're putting away and what you're putting it away for.
How do things like budget deficits, interest rates, meme stock valuation, etc., affect long-term planning in the financial, service industry? How does these things affect that long-term service industry?
Yeah, things like that in financial crises and even things like COVID, it's always going to be with us. The world moves in cycles. And I think what happens, and we sort of last year came out of a period where cash, for instance, did better than shares. So typically, people understand the concept, or savvy investors understand the concept of investing in shares, and that over the long term that'll give you the most growth. But then there was this 4 or 5 year period where interest, i.e. cash in the bank, gave you more than what shares did, and a lot of people followed that trend then and stick to their sort of investment strategy and then pull their money out, put it in cash. The thing is, if you chase yesterday's winners all the time, you're bound to lose, because there's no such thing as market or perfect market timing, at least.
True. The world is changing. It has changed as we know it, and it makes it even more important now to change your mindset in terms of your finances and how you want to go about that. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. So I mean, for me, 2 things stand out. Get rid of this notion of retiring at 60. I think
I want to retire at 60.
Well, you can if you can afford it, right?
Yeah.
So no, there are a few. I think medicine, science, everything has developed to such an extent that we're likely to live longer. Meaning that what you've saved up during your working career need to last you for much longer. But if you can delay retirement, even if it's just by 3 years, you give your money 3 more years to grow, and you don't have to dip into your savings for 3 years, so it's a double whammy there. So tiny little sort of mindset adjustments like that, can help your money go a long way.
And everything is really about mindset. If you set your mind and you stick to that mindset, anything is possible. Etienne, before I let you go, just a quick, not definition, but just separating savings and investments, what it means, what's the difference ultimately between savings and investments?
Again, it's one of those things, if you Google it, you might get a few different answers. Look, I think investing in general is saying I'm putting money away to make my money grow. That's investing. Saving, you could have like a definite goal in mind. Maybe a few years from now you want to go to Dubai, right? And you have an account dedicated for that, and you're saving towards going to Dubai. Whereas investing, I think, is a more general concept of just putting something away and let it grow.
So it's more like, you ultimately a more simpler way would be saying that savings is more a short-term thing and investments is more long-term.
Could be, but you could also be saving for a child's education.
Also true. Etienne, thank you so much once again for coming through with that knowledge, that financial knowledge we need here on the segment. It's really, really appreciated. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure. Etienne le Roux from Allan Gray Namibia in the studio, talking about the long term, the phrase the long term. If you missed out on the interview, you can also listen to it on the app. So make sure you download the app right now and, of course, have a listen to that amazing interview. That was Wealth Talks for today.
Wealth Talks was proudly brought to you by Allan Gray. True rewards take time.